All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Lauren, and I'm the Senior Marketing and Events Coordinator at MAR, as well as the producer of our free webinar series. Our webinar today is Remine Docs Plus Broker Tools. This webinar will cover how to access and set up your Remine Docs Plus admin account, how to distribute packages and clauses to your office, how to create a transaction folder and fill out smart forms, how to manage submissions, how to use the impersonation functionality and troubleshoot, and where to go for additional support. If you don't know how to log into your Remine account, this webinar might be a little difficult for you to follow. Remember, you need to sign in through your MLS, which is either Berkshire MLS, the Cape Cod MLS, or MLS PIN. I would suggest signing into your account now if you haven't already. If you're not able to sign into your account, the webinar will be recorded and added to our website at marealtor.com under webinars and on our Remine Docs Plus page. If you have any questions throughout the session, please type them in the Q&A panel on your screen, and we'll hold a Q&A afterward. Our presenters today are Amir Qadri, Mandy Dennis, Amanda Bacon, and Ryan Welch. Amir has spent the last 17 years in and around real estate. Over the last 6 years, he has worked in leadership roles in technology companies and is currently the vice president of the transaction management team at Remine. Mandy began her real estate career in 2005, obtaining her broker's license in North Carolina, and was an MLS director for 9 years. She is currently an account manager with Remine supporting MAR. Amanda has over 10 years in customer service and is now the customer support manager at Remine, where her team supports all inquiries sent in by over 1 million Remine users. And Ryan has spent the majority of his career supporting customers in software companies and currently leads the forms team at Remine. Now over to our presenters.
All righty, thanks so much. Appreciate that. And thank you all for joining. We're very excited to get through this class today, and obviously to get everybody more and more involved and onboarded rather to this Remine Docs platform. There's quite a bit of nuances in the way these are set up in your markets, and I just want to touch on that as we start off, and then as we go through this presentation, like Lauren said, I'll sort of just be droning on here with the presentation while my counterparts, Mandy, Ryan, and Amanda, will be kind of fielding your Q&A questions on the fly. And if at any point there's something that we need from one of them, they'll be able to tell us, and I'll be able to start. Alrighty, so that said, I'm going to make sure my screen is shared. It should be working, I would think. Yep, great. Okay, so Remine Docs is a new, obviously, member benefit. NAR has decided to sort of cancel the previous member benefit that you guys have had, I guess, throughout the country, and the Massachusetts Association has decided to pick up Remine Docs so that you don't really have a gap in service. We are deployed for the Massachusetts Association within 3 MLSs, basically. So your login credentials are going to be either from MLS PIN, Berkshire, or Cape Cod, the way that Lauren just mentioned to us. Okay, so if you are in Berkshire, it's very simple. You just log into your MLS and there will be a tile there. Same thing with Cape Cod, there should be a tile there. And then lastly, if you go to MLS PIN, you will go to Pinergy, and down here, you'll see a little Remine tile. You'll click this tile from Pinergy. That will lead you to a screen for Remine where you have to log in, okay? You'll have to create a password here using your MLS ID, and that will get authenticated via your email, and then you'll have access to Remine and Remine Docs. With Cape Cod and Berkshire, it's a bit different. Sorry, my computer is acting up. There we go. Like I said, with Berkshire and Cape Cod, it's a bit different. You already have access, so you should be okay there via your MLS. You won't have to log in a second time. With PIN, you will. You'll have to just make sure to go to Pinergy and then again to log in. Okay, now talking about the platform a little bit here, we can say that I like to think that from an analogy perspective, Remine Docs Plus is a bit of a step forward. So there is a bit of a learning curve in that paradigm shift. First and foremost, we were designed as a system that predominantly replaces this kind of process. And so if you think about the way that these systems were built 20, 30 years ago, or the way we started 20 or 30 years ago, you would have gone to your computer to create a draft with your product. From there, you would have then gone to print it, gone to your physical computer, or sorry, printer, you would have gotten a piece of paper. And with that piece of paper, you would have then marked it up with a pen in order to sign it or highlight or tag things. And then naturally you would have driven or faxed whatever you needed to do in order to get that document signed. So the majority of the documents that we see today are very comparable in the way that they function. Okay. A lot of them work exactly the same way as they used to do in that same regard, except we've digitized them and put them in a computer. So you would go to your computer still today, you would get your piece of paper, and from there, you would print it, you would create your form, you would print your form, and now that form is effectively just a digital PDF, okay? And then so what you're looking at on my screen right now is in fact a physical piece of paper with regular, wet ink on it, whereas today this would be exactly the same, except these would be like initial tags from an e-signature platform. And then, of course, we've replaced the scanning and faxing part with email, right? So if you think of it the same way, today we have a digital PDF, which is just a digital piece of paper. We have an e-signature tool, which is effectively just a digital pen. And then we obviously have the email system. So it's not really a step forward in the way that we've designed things. It's basically the exact same thing we used to do, but we've just brought it into the computer for us. With Remine Docs, what we've done is we've effectively enabled a cloud-based multi-party collaborative document. And what I mean by that is you have one document like this, and this document is live. It's not multiple versions of the same PDF. So if Ryan and I are doing a deal together and I'm sending Ryan a deal, I've got a copy of a PDF, he's got a copy of a PDF, he's going to start getting that thing signed. He's going to send it back to me. Now there's a new PDF. I'm going to get this thing signed again or counter offered. There's a new PDF. I'm going to send it to my office. I'm going to do this with it and that with it. And eventually we've got 10, 12, 15 copies of the same contract flying around. In Remine Docs, effectively, you have one copy and it's live at all times. Naturally, as we get into this office scenario, you're going to see that it does split in between the offices, but effectively it's one document. Okay. So what I mean by that very quickly to just highlight this is we have here, let's say one party, and that's a buyer agent and two buyers. Then we have another party, and this will be a listing agent with two sellers. And then essentially what will happen is if the buying agent was to send a deal over this way, let's just call that version 1, and that'll be around 500,000 bucks. Then it'll come back to the others when the listing agent has done their share, and this will be called like version 2, and maybe this will be 520,000. Okay, and now as this goes back and forth and back and forth, it is one document. It is cloud-based, kind of like a Google Drive, if you want to think of it that way. And it's going to be accessible by those we've given permission to see it. Okay, so we're not sharing a scan of a PDF or sending a document around. In that sense, we're actually sharing access, and that's a very big distinction that we should kind of all make. Alrighty. Now, with that all said, we have a number of functions that you can use as administrator. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to very quickly log into the application and show some of the very quick functionality as an agent, and then we'll start getting into the administrative side of things here. So bear with me while I figure out where this all went. That's not what I want. All right. So if I was an agent and I have now come to Pinergy, okay, as an agent now or an admin, anybody basically, you'll click down here to go to Remine. That will lead you here. And then on the left, you're going to have Docs Plus. Now, in PIN, I will preface very quickly that there are a lot of users in PIN, and not all of those users in PIN are with the Massachusetts Association of Realtors. And the way that we check whether or not you have access to Docs Plus, first and foremost, is with your NERDS number. Okay, so if for whatever reason you come in to the application and on the left-hand side, it does not say Docs Plus, it just says Docs, and you click it and it asks you to upgrade, then more than likely there is some sort of problem with your NERDS number. Either we're not receiving that information from NAR, or you don't have the Massachusetts affiliation within NAR, or something to that effect. There's just basically some connection that's not telling us that you're supposed to have access to the system. And so that's the type of thing where you would want to write into support. I don't really understand why my computer keeps popping up my Outlook. Sorry, guys. What's it doing? Okay, so again, coming back to that, just keep in mind that if for whatever reason the NAR thing isn't working, that is probably why. All right, let's get back to this. Apologies again, I hope that doesn't continue just popping up like that. All right, so I'm gonna click on Docs Plus. Again, if it says upgrade, just reach out to support. That's support@remine.com. All right. Okay, so this is an agent interface. Okay, so as an agent, what you can see here is I would be in the application and I would have the ability now to create a transaction or upload a file. And then as an agent, naturally, I can go through, I can create transactions here. I have my folder for my transactions. I have package library, form library, clause library, and checklist library. These are builder tools effectively. These allow me to create packages, clauses, checklists. And what's very important here is I can do this all as a broker. Okay, so, and I can disseminate those down within my office. And then you're gonna notice at the bottom, it says my submissions. This is an interesting tool here, and this is what we're basically gonna talk about also in this session today. If I am an agent, this very specifically says my submissions because it means things that I have submitted to my back office for review. Whereas if it were to have said submissions, which it will in a brokerage account, that means those are the submissions that are related to my office. And again, that's a big distinction. When I am logged in as an agent, I will see two tiles. One is create a transaction, one is upload a file. This is how I would interact with other people in the office, okay? Sorry, this is how I would interact with my contracts. And then if I was to submit a document, that's how I would interact with my back office. And that would go through my submissions here. And we'll show how to do that a little bit later on. Okay, so I'm just gonna switch over to a different account where I've got a little bit more things set up. So let me just find that. There we go. So we're back to being an agent here. I'm gonna create just a very quick dummy transaction. I'm not gonna sign it or anything like that, but I'll just do some quick work. And by the way, this is now, this is no longer, oops, in MLS PIN. I'm just in a different market here because again, like I said, I have more things set up. So I'll put in some fake users here. All right, now I'm just gonna grab a couple forms. All right, that's 3 forms, that's probably enough. All right, so with these 3 forms, you can see right now as an agent, again, I'm in my transactions. These are my 3 different forms here. And I'm gonna open one up. And again, because of the nature of this call, I'm not gonna waste time going through it. And these are obviously not the MAR forms. But if I go through and I needed to fill this all out, I could. So I'm just going to really quickly add a price here. We'll put in a closing date. And you'll notice that the system has already gray tagged the people that I put in. So very important at the top here, Billy Buyer, Sally Seller, myself, and Larry Lister. And you'll notice I have these gray initial previews down at the bottom. These previews are by and large just that. They're just previews. They're just an indication on the screen to tell you that something is going to happen here. This is not what is going to get typed. It's basically just highlighting something to say this is where an initial will go. When a consumer or another agent or anybody actually decides to initial this, they'll be able to sign what is specifically supposed to be there. So in this case right now, it says Billy Buyer and it's got a BB. If they wanted to sign like, Billy, Jack Buyer, then it would just be BJB and that would be there, okay, when they sign. So as I keep going through this form, I'm just going to double check that there's things here that I need. So whatever, that's all fine and good. All of this information has pre-populated. I've got myself, I've got the other agent, I've got Billy Buyer, I've got Sally Seller. And now I'll just progress over to another document. Like so, and another document. And I'm all done. Okay, so just for the sake of argument here, what I'm going to do very quickly is I'm going to get these documents signed. Okay, so bear with me 1 second, and if there is anything that needs to kind of get addressed in the Q&A at this point, it would be decent while I just get this thing signed. So guys, if there's anything you think I should talk about, just let me know. I'll take that as a no.
Yeah, I think we got them as is just within, but we can always circle back.
Okay, so just bear with me here, folks, as I just go through a few signatures so this is a little bit more relevant. I'm signing this document now as myself. So I'm the agent. On the right-hand side, you notice I have this. This is obviously not part of the application. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. This is just for a frame of reference as I go through the demonstration as to give you a context of who I'm actually interacting with on this screen. So now I've gotten myself to sign this document. And I'm just going to zip through the buyer side as well very quickly. All right, 4 signatures. Should I take a sec? And so here you can see now, as the buyer, it said BB, but I could obviously draw whatever I want, or I can type, whatever I want to right here. So there we go. And that is what will initial. So you'll see BJB come up. Okay, so buyer has signed. I'm back to being the buying agent. And now what I'd like to do is start getting involved here with kind of this broker and admin process. So if we think of it this way, the agent has now gone out and done a deal. Yes, I realize they've only gotten half of it signed, but let's just assume for the sake of argument that it was all signed. Okay, and now I have up here my transactions, and then I've got this chevron to indicate to me that I'm in 1390 Orchard Park. Okay, this is in my transactions. If I come back to the rest of my transactions, you can see I have a laundry list here of other transactions that I've done in the past. On the right-hand side, I have these statuses. Again, this is all as an agent, but admins have similar functionality. On the status, I can choose active, inactive, or closed. Okay. And then up here, I have these filters where I can actually search through what's active, inactive, or closed and show that on my screen. So as an example, if this 123 Main Street was something that was inactive, I would mark it as such. And if I wanted to see every deal that I'm working on that, or sorry, I had previously worked on that is now inactive, I just sort of tag them through. So now you can see, show me only the inactives, and that's all I get. If I wanted to see just the closed, then that's all I would get. And if I wanted to just see the actives, obviously, that's how I would do that. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. I'll just turn these all back on. Another thing to keep in mind here are your sorting. Okay, so typically you're going to want to have date modified as the newest at the top. So the most recent thing you have done is going to sit at the top of this list. You can sort them alphabetically, A to Z or Z to A, or A to Z and Z to A. You can also use your statuses or any of these other sort of parameters here. So again, this Orchard Park is my transaction. I'm going to open this up. It's active. Inside of here as the agent, I have a choice to look for checklists. Okay. In this case, I don't have one, but I could very easily create a new one or select one. And again, in a second, I'm going to show you as a broker how to build that all up. I can look at my e-signature path to see when this document has been sent out for signing. And then in this case, I haven't done that yet. I just signed it in person. I have this transaction email. I can add a folder. I can add a form. I can upload PDFs if I like, or again, a checklist here. And of course, I have this transaction email. So this gibberish email that you're seeing here, this is effectively an email that is specifically for this 1390 Orchard Park folder. If I was to send a customer this email and say, can you please send me pictures of your house or a survey or a plat map, they would just reply all and include this, and then anything they send will just pop up in here, and that takes about 5 or 10 minutes, so just keep that in mind. Alrighty, now one other really big thing to touch on here before we move forward is this concept of transactions and folders. Okay, in our application, a folder is effectively a transaction, and everything inside of a folder will talk. Okay, so if I have Billy and Sally on one deal inside my 1390 Orchard Park folder, as I start adding more and more documents to this folder, those names will perpetuate through the remaining documents. So what's very important for your agents and for yourselves to understand is rule of thumb here is one folder per transaction. And inside those folders, you can put subfolders if you like, but keeping in mind that a folder only talks within itself. So if I was to create a folder here, and I can write subfolder for Orchard. Now, what you can do is look up here where it says my transactions, and I have these 3 dots. These 3 dots are going to show the tree. So it starts at my transactions. I've gone to the 1390 folder, and now I'm sitting in this folder. Okay, so as you can see underneath here now, I have a subfolder. If I click on this and go back up one level, I'm back to my 1390 Orchard Park, and the subfolder is there. So if I click on this and I click right click, excuse me, and go to info, I can see that I have Sally, Larry, Amir, and Billy, and these are all people that are in this deal. So if I was to start adding more forms in here, it's going to bring those same people forward. All right. If I go to the subfolder now, that's empty. It doesn't know what to do yet. So if I was to go into the same subfolder here now and add a form very quickly, I'll just grab something. I'll just grab what I know will work. Now, when I click on this, because I'm in the subfolder, it just has me. It doesn't know anything else. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Again, so this is how you would handle kind of a decision tree where you have, multiple offers, for example, or whatever the case may be. Just make sure to understand the simple concept that everything inside of a folder talks, and one folder per transaction. So if I got like 5 different offers on Orchard Park, I would want to have 5 different subfolders. And if offer 1 came from Billy, and offer 2 came from John, and offer 3 came from Steve, then I would have a folder with my seller's information and John on one folder, Steve on another folder, and Billy on the third folder. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And then lastly, I think just to talk through this when I come back here, this is where an agent would submit. So I can select all these items, and as a result up here, I'm going to have a submit function. And now as an agent, I can press create a submission and actually submit it. Okay, so let me just do that here quickly and we'll come back to that. So just take a mental note here. We're going to submit this transaction. Whatever the closing date was. If my office is holding the deposit or not, if we've received it or not, and I'm actually submitting these 3 documents. This is the status that they're going to get submitted as. I can add comments here. This comment is going to be for the whole folder. So these are submission level comments. So as an example here, if I was supposed to have submitted 10 documents, but I've only submitted 3, then I will write a new submission level comment and say, here are 3 of the 10. I'll get the other 7 soon. And that's a comment that's now going to be viewable by my admins. And then down here, I'll also have comments that are related document by document. Okay, so you can see here we have document level comments and submission level comments. So the submission, obviously, if I have to talk about the 7 other missing forms, I can't write that on an invisible form. That's why we have these submission level comments. Document level comments are specific to the document themselves. So for example, if there was something wrong with this 110 form, I would come in here and I would write a document comment to say, I don't know, missing lawyer information or something like that. We'll update soon and post. Okay, so now for the sake of argument, I'm just going to submit this and I'm going to go log in as a broker and we'll go through that functionality. But keep in mind here that this has been submitted now, and you can see in my transactions, there's no indication of that. But if I go to my submissions, now you can see that I recently just submitted this Orchard Park. So this is everything I've sent to my office to review. And you can see that some of these things in my office are currently being reviewed, others are submitted, some would be approved. And I'm going to start talking about that side of the workflow here now. So bear with me a second as I go switch to that kind of account. All right, so I'm going to now be the admin. All right, so as an admin, when you land here on in your account, you're going to notice one fundamental difference, and that is that we have 3 tiles. So right off the bat, we have create a transaction, upload a file, and impersonate a user. So this is going to allow me as a broker or an admin to impersonate any user in my office. So as an example, if I jump in here and I type in things like agent 9, you can see I have agent 9 pop up. If I type in agent 2 or 3, I'm not sure whichever ones we have here. There's agent 10. So you can see all these users are kind of popping up. Now, I personally here in this instance am in a parent office. So this is another point that we should probably bring up right now, is the whole idea of these parent and child offices. Okay, so if I am in a parent office, and so what you can see here is that I'm an admin and this is DOCM01. This is in this market, the 1 indicates that they are the parent. So that means any office underneath that, I'll also have purview over. And so if you think of it like the 1 office or the parent office would be like the downtown office, let's say. And then, you'd have an office 2, 3, 4, which could be like northeast, southwest. And so as a result, if I am actually an admin in the parent office, then I have purview over the other satellite offices. If I am an admin in office 3 or 4, which would be north or south, then I have control over specifically my office only. And so that's another important thing to take note of. So if I was an admin in office 3 and I start typing in names for office 3, I'm only get people in office 3. If I was an admin in office 1, I'll get people in office 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's the impersonation function, and we can probably come back to that a little bit later and show you also how agents will impersonate each other. But the other thing to note here when I land is that I have this recents section. And inside this recent section, you'll notice as an agent, it starts on recent edited, because that's probably most relevant to the agent is what did they last work on. But what's most relevant to an administrator is probably more like what just came in. Okay, and so you can see here that I've got these, let me just refresh this. There. So now that I've got my most recent update, which is 1390 Orchard Park, that Amir just submitted to the office manager. Okay, so that's going to be at the top of my list. So this is basically something for me to know that as an admin, as I come in, these are the most recent 4 things that have been seen. So I like to use this as my starting point for any kind of workflow. Okay, and as an admin now, also we have these recents, and you've also got a function for announcements, and we haven't made any here, and we'll talk about that as well as we go through the rest of this presentation. So as an admin on the left-hand side, you're going to have the statistics panel. This is not really that relevant. It's just basically some simple information to tell you how many people have logged into to the platform from your office. Okay, so it's not really important, but it's there. Then we can go into my transactions. Now, when we use the word my, it is very purposeful. My transactions means I am logged in as this person, this admin in this office, and this is specifically my deals. So these are not office level deals. This is my account. So if I'm sort of an administrator that also trades, then here's my content. So let's ignore that, because that's basically the same as if you were an agent. And if we go into now package library, form library, clause library, or checklist library, again, these are basically builders, okay? And so what I mean by builders is it's where I'm going to build a template, it's where I'm going to build a clause, it's where I'm going to build some form of content that's going to distribute across the offices. So again, whenever you see the word my, that is very important. It's purposeful. If I go to package library and I'm an admin, we have defaulted the selection to say more groups because that's where your offices will live. If you wanted to build a package here, this is specifically just for you. So now I'm in my packages. And if I start building a package under this tree where my packages here is highlighted, it's not going to go to the office. I cannot cut and paste them across that line either. I would have to restart. So just please keep in mind, if your plan is to build a package for the office, to build it specifically in the office, not in my packages. So I go to package library, more groups, and you can see this is my office. If I want to build something in this office, I click it. And now under here, I have my office is chosen. You can see it's there. And these are all packages that we can distribute through the office. If I want to distribute something to a sub office, I click again on more groups and I go to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many offices would be here, that is where they all would live. So in my case here, if I go into the 2, now you're going to notice here that I've got 1 and 2, and I'm specifically in the 2 folder now. Okay. Now, very important here, you do not have to build things 6, 7, 8 times in order for them to distribute across those offices. You just build it in the main office, and that's very important. If I want something to show up in office 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I just build it once in the parent. So I'm going to do that now as an example. So you can see here, I'm in the parent, and I am going to build a package. So today is December 7th. And I'm going to add some content. So for now, let me just grab forms that I know as an admin or a broker I expect to see. I expect to see a purchase and sale. I probably expect to see a buyer agreement. If this is from the buyer side, I'm building a buy side package, let's say. I probably expect to see something about extra stipulations or clauses, and maybe some kind of contingency form. And maybe I want a checklist. So I'll just grab this example buyer checklist. Let's use that guy. Okay, so again, as a broker, I could have a checklist here as well, and I'm going to show you how to build that. It's a very similar workflow. So I've got all this. Whoops, I guess that package is, whoops, that checklist is old. I'll just do this again. 201. Let's do that. I wanted a contingency form as well. Let me grab that. All right. Now what you notice here is in my package, I've got my December 7th test package title. I've got my 4 forms. These are generally speaking just kind of numerically or alphabetically placed. And so as I start coming through here now, I'm going to start customizing these. Okay, so if I'm going to go and grab this one, now I'm customizing this. This is a gigantic cut and paste, basically, is what I'm doing. I'm creating a cut and paste of these 4 forms so that every time I draw upon this package, those forms are going to come pre-populated with the information that I'm customizing now. So if I was to say this will typically be clicked off, this will typically be 95%, let's say 25 years, 3. I'll just do this really quickly. Let's just say it's like Bank of America or something. All right, so that is normally what I expect to see on this form. 9 times out of 10, that's how I'll probably set it up. So I'm going to say done. That's how the broker might want it done, whatever the case may be. Okay, so as I go through some of these, I can go into the stipulations document here. And in this point, we could also bring in brokerage level clauses. Okay, so let's just add something like this. So when I'm adding clauses, I have MLS level clauses, if you will, state level clauses, and my office and my own. So I'm going to grab clauses that have already been built in my office. And we're just going to grab maybe these sample brokerage ones, select these 3. I can preview them. We're going to bring these into this form. We're going to click done. And lastly, I'm going to go into the contract, purchase and sale. And on this purchase and sale, maybe there would be somewhere where I would want something very specific about my office to be written in. Yeah, like maybe I have a very specific escrow attorney that I want everybody to use. So I would say this firm would be Amir's lawyer mandate or something to that effect. Same thing with this, Amir's escrow mandate. And let's just say that's that. Okay, so you see these gear icons. That tells me that I customized this package today on the 7th, and now I'm going to publish that package. When I do this, I'm going to get this giant warning that says everyone in this DOCM01F, this document management office, will see my changes immediately. So this will tell me, you know, if I'm in the parent office of a Remax or a Keller Williams, everyone is going to see that as soon as I press click. It's published now. It will be in everybody's folders when they go to use them. Okay, so that's how we set up the package library. Form library is very similar. Again, when I look up here, I have more groups to click on. I'm going to go into my office. This is how I would actually disseminate PDFs. If you guys want Smart Forms programmed to have all the same functionality as MAR forms do, then you have to send those into us and we can handle those Smart Form programming for you. If you just want to disseminate some simple PDFs across your office, you can do that like such. So let me just create a folder here. And again, we'll call it December 7 test. Oops. And I'm going to just put in a PDF here. Let's just grab this guy. So now I've created a folder and I have actually distributed a PDF that everyone in my office can now see. Okay, so that's the form library function. Outside of that, the functionality of the form library is really just to preview forms. So if I go through this, for example, and I wanted to see what this looks like, I can just click it and it's basically going to show me a preview of this form, and I can understand that that is what I want to see or not see. I can download a blank copy to my computer, or I can use it now. All right, clause library. Again, this is another distribution mechanism. Again, my clauses versus more groups, very important. As an admin, it's defaulted to more groups. You're going to go to your office, and I'm going to create a sample clause folder now. So if I have to go here and say clause, December. And I can just type something out here. I'll just put in some gibberish and I'll save that. Checklists now. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Again, don't go to my checklist, go to your office, go into my office. I'm going to create a checklist here. I'm going to call it December 7th checklist. I'm going to add tasks such as, I don't know, let's say fire agency contract. Then another one is going to be, I don't know, addendum signed or something like that. Another one after that could be, who knows. And then I'll just put in some blanks, XYZ. There we go. All right. So now I have built all this functionality for an agent to see. So very quickly now, I'm just going to digress for a second. I'm going to come back to being an agent, and I'm going to show you how all of that content I just made is now accessible to an agent in my office. So as an agent now, again, just coming back, if I was to start a deal, I'm going to put in some random MLS number. Put in some fake people again. Oops. So now as an agent, I'm going to go use the stuff that my broker just created for me, or my admin. So if I go to packages, you can see now inside packages, I should be able to find in my office. Okay, so just to give you the distinction here, you see this little filing cabinet. These briefcases are mine. The filing cabinets are from my office. So if I open up this little filing cabinet, it's going to show me that. And now I've got these briefcases to talk about. Those are those packages there. So there should in here be somewhere, because I have so many. Geez, there should be a December 7th one in here somewhere. There it is. And I can just click these, and those are now for my December 7th package as an agent to use these. So I'm going to grab these. I'm going to open up this form. If you recall, as I was building this form, I put in this stuff here. Amir's escrow agent mandate, Amir's lawyer mandate. That stuff is now there for me as the agent, preloaded inside here. Okay. You can also see that obviously with the MLS, it's brought in more information here like such up top. And then as I keep kind of going through the form, more and stuff would have pre-populated, etc. As I go into the other documents like this guy, I customized him. So you can see again, here we have, an offer, or this contingency. Maybe it's called Exhibit 1, and it's from today. And let's say that's right, because 9 times out of 10, that would be right. If it were wrong, I would just change it on the fly, something like that. Okay. All right. So the other things that we built here were clauses and checklists or forms. Okay, so the other way to look at this is, now if I wanted to go to my office, I actually have a form here. So if I go to the forms section inside of here, I wanted to add that PDF that I just distributed. I just click this, and then in here, there should be another December 7th. There it is. I grab that form, no problem. If I'm in a form, let me just go into one of these. I just created this from earlier as the admin. If I wanted to add more clauses now, I will come in here and I will say, where's my office? And December the 7th. There it is. Grab that. And so that would come out again for the agents. All right. I think that's good for the agent side. Let's go back to being the admin. Okay, so earlier in the session, I know we've been jumping around a little bit, but earlier in the session, I started this off to show you how the agent workflow went. while I was doing that agent workflow, I took advantage of that time and actually submitted something to the office. And so what I want to see now, as from an admin's perspective, how I would receive that. So like I said, on my dashboard, when I'm an admin, I see 1390 Orchard Park right here. And that was the most recent thing that has been submitted in this office. If I click on submissions over here, and you'll notice again, it does not say my submissions because I'm an admin. When I go into submissions, I have the first thing to see. I have my submissions, and that is literally what I have actually sold and submitted myself. So by and large, most admins will ignore that. Then I'm going to go to more groups. Inside more groups, I've got my office. And inside here, I've got some folders that I've built. And you guys can structure this however you want to structure it. This is just one example that we've built out for you. But the way this works is effectively, this is a giant list of everything that's been submitted. And so you're going to organize it however you want to organize it, kind of like you would do with Windows as an example. So I have it sorted to say the most recent is at the top. And so as you can see here, the most recent is in fact at the top. And I have this Orchard Park one right there. So this Orchard Park one was submitted by Amir. It's got its closing date and deposit due dates are listed as Amir put them in, and I can check those. I'm holding the office, our office is holding the deposit. This little money bag determines whether or not we've received it or not. And now I'm going to put this status into admin review. Now, a typical question we get often here is, do admins get notified of new submissions? And the reality is that they do not, because of the way that our system is kind of designed. If you had a parent office with 5 sub offices and that was, 2,000 agents and 15 admins, then we would be sending out literally thousands of emails a day to those admins. And so what we have designed here is a way for specifically an admin to receive the email. So if I assign myself this email by clicking on this and saying, I'm this office manager, and that's who I am. You'll notice here, my name is Office. I click on Office Manager. I press done. Now, any interaction between comments between me and the other agent are going to come specifically to me. So I've assigned myself this file effectively. Okay. If I have not assigned myself a file, then it will go on the landing page. It'll go on the dashboard. It'll go kind of here, wherever you need it to be. If you actually want to be able to communicate back and forth with the agent who submitted something, just assign yourself to that file. So I've done that now. And now I can open this up. So you can see this is a submission. It was done by Amir. It's in Amir's folder effectively. That's who owns it. I'm the one who is reviewing it, which is the office manager. These are some of these facts. And now I can look. The comments, he said, here are 3 of the 10. I'll get the other 7 soon. So I can reply and say something like, hurry up. And now Amir is going to get that email. Okay, so he'll immediately get an email that says hurry up. And when he clicks it, it'll bring him directly to this screen so he can see the comment. I can also look at the forms. So when I start looking at the form here like this, you'll notice now that because I'm in the context of a submission, my view is a bit different because I also have comments up here and I have status up here. So I can put this file in review and I can see if this form has any comments. And it doesn't. So that's fine, but it does have submission level comments. Again, that's the higher scale. That's for the whole folder. Is there any comments that are document specific? In this case, there are not. I can move now to a document that would potentially. Not that one. Let's go to the third one. There. In this document, there is a comment at the document level. So on this one here, again, I can say, whatever, 123 Lawyer Lane and post. Now, another point to note, I have this 3 dots up here. I can mark this as resolved, but it'll never go away. So there's always a history of what has been communicated between the agent and the admin. Okay, so right here, this is resolved, but it's just been grayed out. So it still lives. And if there's any discrepancy between yourselves and an agent, then you can say, well, the comment still shows that I asked you for such and such thing and you didn't do it. Okay. So that's good. I'm going to also put this one in admin review and I'm going to come back here. So now you'll notice that I've got 1 file in review, 1 file that's submitted. I can say that this guy is needing approved, and let's say this last one actually needs attention. So that's fine and good. The other thing you can do here is you can delete, agents can't. Once an agent has submitted something to you, they cannot remove it from your submissions. You can rename this as well. Agents can't really, but the agent named it this. And so in order for the agent to keep track of it on their side, they'll have to be able to name it themselves or keep their own name, sorry. So if I wanted to do this, I would say like admin side, let's say. And notice we keep the original name for reference. So when you're talking to the agent, he may not have renamed it that way. So at least that way you can actually say, this is the file we're talking about. And I'm going to save that. So now this submission has been saved. Okay. The comments have gone into Amir. And if I wanted to at this point, I could move these into another folder. So I have folders here. And at any point in time, if I wanted to take any one of these deals, I would just grab it and say move, go to my office, and then look for whatever deal folder I want to. So maybe I want them to go to closed, maybe I want this to go to old or one or whatever, in progress, wherever I want them. So let's just put this one as an example, George and Sally seller. We're going to put this in old deals and go. And it's gone. And now it'll be in here. Okay. So as a point of reference, the way I like to use this is when I go to my submissions here, or the submissions tab on the left, excuse me, this is kind of like a landing page. So I don't like that this one has like 100 documents here. What I would probably do is I would probably build a folder that says in flight, another folder that says, terminated, another one that's closed, another ones that are pending. And as this folder fills up, I would get my admins to assign themselves to the work and then move it into these folders accordingly. And this becomes kind of like a landing page. So every morning you kind of log in and you just sort of see how big your landing page is and you act accordingly and deal with that workflow from there. Okay, let me go quickly and show you that comment as an agent. All right, so I'm now an agent. I'm going to go to my submissions. Now, again, very important. My transactions and my submissions as an agent are two different things. My transaction is the actual deal itself. Okay, so if I go to that Orchard Park deal, these statuses are related to that deal and kind of the signing workflow that's been happening around that deal. Sorry, one quick sec. So these statuses are not related to the submission process. When I go to my submissions, these statuses are. Okay, so when I go into Orchard Park and I see admin review approved needs attention, that's what my admin just sent to me. And when I click on here, you'll notice that I've got my comments that have been sent to me. I also got an email for those comments. Okay, so if I was to reply now with something like, sorry about that, the admin is now going to get that email instantly. So this admin will now receive that email as well. Okay. And if I change any of these, the admin will, it'll reflect inside the admin's account and so forth. Now you can see here, I can't delete this any longer. Okay. And I can't change the name. Only the admin can. All right. Let's go back to being an admin and we'll touch on a couple more things. Where do I want to go? Oh, yeah. Okay, a couple other things that we can touch on here. We have announcements and users. Announcements. It's not like a widely used feature, but it is a neat little thing if you wanted to use it. I can build an announcement. So basically, I go into my office. I can create an announcement. So something like test and say, do something specific by a certain time. I can center it. I can ask that the user confirms it or not. You will not get a receipt of this. It's just going to like block their account. So it's not going to like tell you that 50 people were asked and 40 of them said yes. It's just going to force them to see it. And then I can put a deadline. So let's just put this for like, I don't know, 5 minutes or something. So I don't have to forget it later. So December 10th, and I want, what time do I want? All right. And I can preview this. So basically now, when any of my agents in my office log in, they'll have this big announcement right there. Okay, so it'll say your office's name, it'll say, you know, Keller Williams or Remax or whatever. You'll have your title and you'll have your little note. Okay, so that's just another little tool that we can use. Outside of that, let me just discard that. Outside of that, we have users. This is a bit tricky, but it is interesting. If you wanted to look up content for a user, you can do this at any time. So for example, if I was to take a user like this, I type in their email, I find their account, they live in my office, I can find all of their transactions historically, and they're here for me. At this point now, if I wanted to find these things, I can select them all, and I can either generate audit reports, download them, or I can send them to another office if this agent has left my company. So that's a bit more functionality that's available here as well. We have these guided tours at the bottom. These are helpful. If you take them, there's basically one tour for roughly every single nav panel on the left. This will help you very quickly kind of getting started with a click-through tour. It's going to explain things to you. So for example, as I go through, it's just going to explain what each one of these little sections does. Okay, so we can exit out of that. I think before calling support or anything like that, that's the easiest thing you can do, is just have a quick look at this guided tour. Support information is down here as well. You can submit a ticket via here. Okay, the support team will obviously get back to you. And other than that, what else do we have? Settings. Inside your settings page, what you're going to notice here is your email and your MLS email. These should be the same, and they will be the same, generally speaking. Next, you have your ancestry. That's just going to tell you what parent office you're in or what child office you're in. So as an example, I'm in this office, 01, that's the parent. If I was in a child office 234, it would show under here as well. So there'd be one more of these arrows and I would see one more office and I'd be underneath that. Again, very important. If you want to distribute content to all of your offices, do it in the parent. If you want it to be specific to one specific office, then do it in that child. So as an example, if I wanted 10 forms to go to all my offices, I put the 10 in the parent. If I had 2 that for some reason I wanted specific to one office on my north suburb, then I put those 2 in the north suburb. Okay. Signature pad is that's for you. Your role is going to say admin brokerage. Okay, just keep that in mind, whether you're an assistant, licensed assistant, broker, head broker, whatever the case is. This is a docs functionality. All we need to know is you're the broker. So I wouldn't worry about that. If it says agent, then I would worry about that. That means that you're not in an admin specific role. We have to change that either on our side or with the MLS side. And then of course you have your document time zone and some random settings down here. All right, I know we're up on time, and I mean, there's still probably more I can show you, but I think this is a really robust start. How are we doing on the Q&A side of things? I'm happy to hang on for a bit and answer any other questions as they come trickling in, but you know, again, please reach out to us if there's any questions. You have our support contact information, and we're happy to help, and we look forward to you guys using our platform more and more every day.
Thank you so much, Amir. We appreciate it. Are there any other questions that needed to be addressed before we sign off today, Ryan?
Just a general trend from the Q&A with like generally some impersonation issues, which I think is probably more like tech side related. I don't know, maybe like from like MLS PIN kind of stuff, because I know that there's some weirdness there, but also just generally like someone wanting to see the impersonation in action, just like it just came in now. I don't know if you want to like do that real quick. That's an easy enough thing.
Yeah, and I can actually just really quickly address that. There's a bit of an issue going on that it seems like today with MLS PIN, with just some user roles that we have to address. So if you are having kind of impersonation or login issues for the next couple hours, that might be why. It shouldn't be affecting everybody. It should only be a few hundred or maybe, you know, a little bit more than that. So if that is the case, just write in and we'll get back to you. Impersonation is a two-way function here, obviously. Okay, so as an admin, you do not need permission to impersonate people. Theoretically, you're the boss. And so because you're the boss, that everybody that works underneath you kind of, you have purview to view them. So as an example, if I want to impersonate a user, you can see here my name is Office, unfortunately, so ignore that. In this case, we actually have set up this user to be named Office Manager. And I am an admin in this office. If I wanted to impersonate Amir, let's say, I can actually go and do that. So you'll see, I see Amir here. I'm going to go into his account. And now at the very top banner, you are impersonating Amir. And you notice that my dashboard has now shifted and I see 2 tiles instead of 3. And on the bottom, it actually says Amir here. So I am 100% acting as Amir now. If I go into my transactions, they're his. If I go into submissions, they're his. So as an admin, what's important here to note is on your screen, when you're receiving submissions, you have stuff that Amir has given me, or you rather. So if I, as Amir, go out and do a deal, and I only submit you 5 documents, but I know I signed 10, as an admin, you can impersonate me, go to my transactions, go to my Orchard Park folder, and go get whatever you want. Just because I didn't give it to you, you have the ability to get it. Okay, so I like to think of this as like, if you were in school and you submitted something to your teacher, that's what goes to the admin, but you actually have the ability to go into their backpack and get whatever else you want.
And just as a follow-up to that, Amir, someone was wondering just like literally like what it looks like to go in and like edit someone's form, for example. And I know maybe like to show like how it's like the audit log will log that the impersonator has made a change, for example, that kind of stuff. But it's literally just like as if you were the agent, so you can go in and change stuff.
Yeah, so this is a very important banner at the top. I'm impersonating Amir. This deal has been signed by somebody. So if I was to come through here now and, I don't know, just change something, I'll change it. That's going to take away a signature. So keep that in mind. Of course, that's now going to create a version 2. Version 1 has now been stored in the background. So this document now has 2 versions of it. And as I go through, I can make other changes. Let me just get it signed.
Just while we're on the topic of impersonation, there was an anonymous question about if someone's impersonating, does the person being impersonated get a message or to click on approval before someone does that? I believe if it's the broker or head admin impersonating, they don't there's no notification. That's just like a default privilege that like the admin has. But when it's between agents and you add like another agent in the settings to be like an impersonation partner, for example, then you have to get confirmation on both sides that you can impersonate each other. So that will actually trigger like a notification. But when it's the broker, they just have like that top-down privilege to do so.
Yeah, and just I guess one more point to clarify, it's not actually really a notification. You have to set permission. It's like a global permission that you set. So at some point here, if I was an agent, Ryan was an agent, and I wanted to allow Ryan to impersonate me because we're a team, then I have to purposely go into my account settings and say Ryan can impersonate me whenever he wants. And I can turn that off whenever I want. And then when Ryan goes in, he has to actually click and do it himself and say, I'm going to be Amir right now. So it's a choice. It's a choice that you put in at an early stage. Okay. So let me go back to show you that question here. I think, Ryan, that you were talking about. I'm just going to go to history. Where's the edit I just made? I wasn't paying attention. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Okay, so you can see here, I changed that price from 500,000 to 600,000. And what you notice here is it says that the price is 600,000 and that this was the edit. Okay. And that it was made by the office manager, action taken by office manager. Generally speaking, this won't show up. It'll say Amir did it. But if somebody else did it, there'll be this little subcategory that says that somebody else actually did that. So on the right here, what you'll see is old price was none, new price is 600 or whatever it was. And now that was done by me. Okay. There's still 15 or 16 questions in the queue, it seems like, so we can keep hanging back.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some general questions about like transferring files from, like zip logic and stuff. Maybe like the emphasis there is just that theoretically, you don't need all of your historical transactions to be in Remine, just your in-flight deals. and you store those zip logic, like those old old transactions from say the past 4 years that are done, just store them in like Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that. Like they don't need to live in Remine to like for your own file. You can keep those separately. Really the only important thing is like any transactions that are like pending. So anyone who's trying to upload huge files, like you're going to run into issues because like there are like file upload limits.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think it's very important, right? Like NAR has decided to cancel that member benefit. So what's important, I think, for most brokers is for compliance is that you own content that was in the previous vendor's platform. It's your content, you have to get it. It doesn't have to be in this platform, you just have to own it, right? So that if something comes up 4 or 5 years down the line, you need to have a record of that content. So, the suggestion that I make here specifically is get that content, do your bulk export from TD or transaction desk and or ZipLogic rather, and upload that stuff to a Google Drive, a Dropbox, your hard drive, a external hard drive, whatever the case may be, but just make sure that you have that copy. That copy being inside of Remine, that's going to be a long process of uploading, hundreds of documents. It's just not necessary. I would probably do, the last 10, 20 deals that have been done in the last, couple weeks that are in flight, maybe, 50 deals for the last month, that kind of thing. It's only what's relevant would be what's kind of like in action now.
And Mary, yeah, you'll get a recording sent to you for this training. So that is all good. I believe it'll be up on the website, and I think Lauren will also send an email. I think you mentioned.
Yes. Yeah, I will send an email to everyone this afternoon with the recording, and it will also live on our website.
And there were a few questions just kind of like on the topic of like what smart forms should be appearing versus ones that maybe don't. And I know Dean has got an existing question there, but when the MAR forms will populate, they should already be there. They'll be under like the Massachusetts Association of Realtors like folder in the form library. But like generally speaking, if there's a form that you're used to seeing and you're not seeing it in the library, like there was a question about New Hampshire forms, for example. We have to be provided with those, like legally speaking, by like the association. They have to have a deal with us or like within like with the association themselves to like provide their content to us. We can't just like upload stuff for you because you want it, right? Like they have to give it to us directly. So I know there was a question about like, for example, like a missing agency disclosure form or something, an MAR. And like for questions like that, like you are better off contacting the association or the MLS to like inquire like, hey, is this form still live? And if it is, they will reach out to us. Like that's the only way we can like allowably publish their content, because like it's not ours. And like they're lawyers about that stuff, that sort of thing. And like Amir mentioned before, if your office, like you're used to your office having certain forms, we have a submission process for offices to send their custom broker forms to us, which we then turn to smart forms and publish. And like that email address is forms@remine.com. For what it's worth, we can always send out like a more formal announcement about that as we go. But yeah, there's like a formal submission process, and we can't just take random PDFs and publish them under the name of the association. Just like full transparency there.
Mm-hmm. And I think also that's another interesting point. Your NERDS number is very critical in all this. Okay, that actually will tell us which forms to light up, right? So for example, the MAR forms are related to that NERDS number. Boston, Greater Boston, I'm sure that's a question that you've been getting. We received those Greater Boston forms pretty late in this process. In fact, after we went live. So we're working through getting those up as quickly as we possibly can. So there's no update on an ETA right now, but it hopefully should happen very shortly. I'm hoping within the month. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so again, there's a process. So if you're a broker and you decide you want to submit forms to us for us to program, thank you, that's awesome. But there's going to be a turnaround time. There's a team here that basically builds those forms, and there's a lot of logic that goes into programming them. We didn't really spend a lot of time on that today, but the reality is our forms can do so much more than the majority of the other systems, and we simply need you to tell us who is who in those forms. So as a user, it's going to pre-populate information, it's going to pre-populate permissions, it's going to pre-populate roles, it's going to pre-populate tagging, it's going to pre-populate everything that you can do kind of dynamically. And so there's a lot of work that goes into programming them. If there's other questions here, I'm just going to start now that I've got a second here where I'm not rambling on. I notice there's a question about can you download to a computer? That's easy. There are 3 download choices. So if I go into my transactions here, I don't know where I am now. I'm just going to do anything now. So if I go into, actually, why don't I go back and impersonate Amir again? And I'll just look at that deal that we just submitted. So Orchard Park. So if I wanted to take these 3 files, I go download, and I have a choice. I can download as a zip file to my computer, download as one compressed file, if you will, so it'll basically aggregate all of these documents into one to my computer, or I can also do that to the one PDF to my transaction folder. So it'll put these all together. So if this form was 6 pages, this one was 2, and this one was another 2, then this will create a 10-page document, and that'll make me a 10-page document on my computer, or a 10-page document right here in this folder, or I can download it to my computer. The reason it's asking me to be a zip file is because I have more than one selected. If I just wanted to have one and I download it, it'll download straight away, right? So there's my download. Easy as that. Okay.
This is just a question from Mark, kind of on the vein of the grep forms, but also just like converting stuff from zip logics, for example. I guess we kind of answered that. The Boston forms are coming. Don't have a formal ETA on those, but we're working on it. But as far as like checklists and templates from zip logics, you can't migrate them over. You need to recreate them directly in Docs Plus.
Yeah, I mean, we're 2 separate companies, obviously. So at the end of the day, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, they don't want to play ball with competitors. So they're certainly not gonna make it easy.
Right.
Yeah, or at least not automatic. And yeah, Lori, New Hampshire forms, once again, we didn't get them. Like, I don't know what to tell you, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's probably something you're going to want to take up with MAR and see if it's something we can do. Although it's New Hampshire, so there might be, I could check maybe, kind of with some of my superiors and see if there's a different, if there's maybe some ongoing discussions on that regard, but New Hampshire is a different state. So we'd have to check out where we stand kind of with that MLS or with that state association.
And Christopher, similar question about Rhode Island forms. In terms of like having like sales staff to facilitate that, I don't know like how we'd want to go about that, Amir, but if it's like account management or if that'd be something straight up that Jonathan would broker that with them directly, but frankly above my pay grade. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure. Where's the question?
It's from 11-12, kind of towards the bottom.
I'll find it.
Yeah.
So that's Rhode Island. Yeah, I can go up the food chain here and just kind of get that passed along to see where Rhode Island stands.
Yeah.
But I have no idea.
You're welcome, Chris. There's some question with the mobile app. And maybe just to clarify, I think Pro has an actual mobile app, but then when you access Docs Plus, it just opens it like in your browser, so it's like mobile responsive, and you can use Docs Plus on a mobile. But there's no like formal app for it. You would get the app for Remine Pro, install it, and then access Docs Plus.
You wouldn't even need it theoretically, right? Like
Yeah, you can just
realistically,
log
you'd
in.
get an email from somebody would send you an email, you click the email, it's going to ask you to log into your MLS, and then you're going to be in Docs.
Yeah. So no app, it'll just go through the browser.
But you can obviously get the Remine Pro app, and there's Docs functionality from inside of it. But basically, Remine Pro is its own Android or iOS, Apple app, whereas Docs is just a browser-based thing. So.
Someone's asking for the number. Do you have a live number? Or is it just like a chat support?
It's predominantly chat and email, the support system. So you can click support here at any point in time and submit a ticket. There is a live chat here as well that you can chat through. And then the support team will determine basically, if a call is needed, then the support team can make that happen. But that's the chain. That's the protocol story.
Okay. And I also put support@remine.com. That's okay.
Yeah, some general questions about not having a NERDS number and like how do you use.
Yeah, that's something we're working on. Admins that do not have a NERDS number, we have to go through that process. So that's going to take us a little bit of time, I think. That's kind of a new one. So we'll probably have to get back to you on that. If we have kind of indication as to how many users we expect that to be, there's some limitations on what an account can and can't do without a NERDS number, without the proper login process. So it's a little bit more complicated than just creating an account. I wish it were that simple, but there is kind of ramifications that need to get flushed out. So I don't have an answer on that one as for when the response will be, but it is being worked on at like a very high priority.
All right. Are there any other questions we want to address really quick, or just to wrap things up here?
I think there is some issue. I think from the Berkshire side, I think there's a question here. There's some issues with the Flex MLS integration there. They're specifically more suited around the broker and admin functionality. So that is being worked on by one of our counterparts over at Flex with the highest priority. So last I heard is that should be happening this week, that resolution, but it's Tuesday and I haven't heard anything yet. So that's another really high priority item. And also just to keep in mind, one thing to note there, yes, there are some challenges with the Flex side of things, but it's predominantly for administrative accounts and higher. So agent level accounts typically work fine. So the due date, yes, of course, that is important, but agents will still have the functionality to use the application on the most basic level regardless. So just to keep that in mind. I see there's something here called upload folders. I don't think any providers really offer upload folders unless they are a cloud storage provider. So for example, like DocuSign doesn't allow uploading folders, Transaction Desk doesn't, we don't. Obviously Dropbox and Google Drive, that's their job. They do allow that. So that's just something to keep in mind here. So for us, you can't upload folders. You can upload entire contents of a folder, but you need a folder for it to go into. So that's relevant.
If people are having a hard time logging in through their MLS, do they need to contact their MLS, correct?
Right now, that problem is happening on, well, there's a connection problem between us and the MLS. So I wouldn't say
Okay.
whether it's our fault or their fault, but
okay, because there's
a connection problem. Yeah. So there's definitely some users that are experiencing that problem right now. Like I said, it should be a subset of users. It's not everybody, but it's a significant enough number where, I mean, my phone's been going off this morning. So we should have an answer to that hopefully by the end of the day, or hopefully even sooner than that. But at this point, just give us time and we'll get that sorted. You can obviously report it to support at Remine and we can get back to you, but by and large, we're working on it when we know.
Okay. All right, well, as a reminder to everyone, this webinar has been recorded and will be available to view this afternoon on our website at marealtor.com. You'll find it on our webinars page in the green archive section, and you can find any upcoming webinars on there as well. You'll also find it on our Remine Docs Plus page, which we encourage you to visit. We have a ton of FAQs on there, so any questions you might have, we have a lot of answers on there as well. If you have any additional questions, please reach out to support@remine.com. Before you close your screen today, you'll see a survey. If you'd like to fill that out, we appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much, Amir, for your presentation. And thank you, Mandy, Amanda, and Ryan for answering all of these questions. And we hope to see you all next time.
It's your time, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.